Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Killin' Me Smalls podcast. I am your host, Mike Small. And if you're like I am, you like to listen to a lot of different podcasts. And I really like basketball podcasts. And one that I've liked for a long time, it's called In the Green Room with Harrison Sanford, who is the host, and Danny Green, who is a former Tar Heel and former LA Laker and three-time NBA champion with the Spurs, Raptors, and Lakers, and is the newest Philadelphia 76er. So I want to talk to Harrison about their relationship, how the pod got started, and how Danny Green fits as a Sixer. And I think we're going to have a pretty fun conversation. Harrison, welcome to the Killing Me
Th-
Smalls podcast.
Thank you for having me. I must say, top 5 podcast name. Big fan of it. And excited for the NBA season to get started. Excited to see how Danny's going to look in Philadelphia. Even though I must say, I still kind of wish we had another month before the season started. This is right back
Yeah.
after the Lakers won. It feels like there has been no break because
Well,
there
it
was
doesn't
free
feel like that in
agency.
Philadelphia after getting bounced right away by the Celtics. So we have had plenty of time. We got to.
Yeah,
The Eagles suck so bad. We got to get back into something around here. And the
yeah.
Phillies right now, I can't even talk about it. So,
How do you feel? Real quick, how do you feel about Jalen Hurts?
all right. So if you can see over me, I'm gonna adjust this camera. What does that say up there? Hold on.
Uh, okay.
All
All right,
right.
you feel
So
good about it
we're
then.
big Alabama fans in the small household. My daughter graduated from there, and my son went there, and so I'm a Dolphin fan unapologetically, and I love me some Tua. And I
Mhm.
think, and I've been hate tweeting Philadelphia lately about this because I don't think Philadelphia deserves Jalen Hurts. I love Philly
Mm,
fans, but man, these Eagle fans are pissing me off. Jalen Hurts
mm.
is a stud. He's a high quality kid, a great character kid with a lot of it factor. And if they don't appreciate him, I'm going to be really disappointed.
Yeah, it's a tough situation for Jalen to be in.
Yeah.
It's so interesting how obviously, if when we start talking about basketball, we'll illustrate just how important superstar players are. But in football, it's such a team sport. If you don't have an offensive line, you're really behind the 8 ball.
Well, no offensive line, no impact receivers that can get open. I mean, and poor Carson Wentz, I think, has turned into David Carr. Because if you remember David Carr, when he was originally the original draft pick of the Houston Texans, had a lot of talent, but they had no offensive line. And he just got buried and kind of played his career with PTSD. And I think that's what's happening to Carson Wentz right now.
Yeah, it's unfortunate if you're an Eagles fan because obviously the expectations for the team were
Yeah.
higher than this. But hey, it is the NFC East. It's still wide open.
Yeah, for sure.
Unbelievable.
Hey, so let's get into you and your background. So Danny Green was one of the best players in America in high school, and he ended up going to North Carolina, won a national championship. Tell me how you met him, how your relationship evolved. You became a sportscaster in large part practicing interviewing this guy. So can you tell us the story?
Yeah, so I've known him for about over 15 years. As you said, he was one of the best high school players in the country.
Yeah.
And because of that, there was one of my high school friends left. Danny went to St. Mary's High School.
Hmm.
When and I went to a school called Lawrence Woodmere Academy. So Danny was one of the best teams in the country, if and definitely obviously the state. I played on a high school team that was one of the best in the state, but not one of the best in the country. Like there was two different like levels there. And because Danny's team was so good, one of his high school teammates left St. Mary's and came to my school. And so all of a sudden, I gained a mutual friend between myself and Danny, our friend who transferred to my school, and that also let me know just how good that my high school basketball team was to the point where they were getting kids to come in to play for the team, which also let me know my career wasn't going to go too far in high school and basketball in general. So I started picking up a pen and a pad, and I would travel around the country I mean, the states rather yet, sorry, covering the best high school basketball players and writing articles about them from Xaverian High School in Brooklyn to Cardoza High School in Queens or Christ the King High School in Queens
Mhm.
or so I would do that for a while, and I would check out all in the Northeast area. I would check out some of the best high school players, write articles about them, and I guess that just fostered my love to cover sports in general. So with that, I stayed in contact, and doing that, I obviously had to cover Danny as well. Besides us having this mutual friend,
Mhm.
so I think he always knew what my goal was in life to cover sports for a living, and then obviously I knew what his goal was for himself. Obviously, being one of the best high school basketball players in the country at the time. So life just kind of evolved. He went to North Carolina, I went to Cornell, and he had a level of success there. And I was fortunate enough to go to Cornell when they went to the NCAA tournament 3 years in a row, and I was a part of the student newspaper sports department. I was like an editor for the sports team there. So continue to just rack up experiences as a sports
Got to give a
journalist.
shout out to Steve Donahue, the coach, who's
Steve Donahue, yes,
his brother's
indeed.
one of my best friends. So
Oh,
Steve's been
yes.
really good to the podcast and to the small family. So shout
Nice.
out to Steve.
Yes. Yeah, very. I was very fortunate to be there when we had some good teams there for a while, relative to what you would expect from an Ivy League team. So that was fun. And then I started to have experiences as a producer in Houston once I
Mhm.
graduated, and then I started getting my on-camera experiences and jobs, starting in Albany, Georgia, which is about 3.5 hours south of Atlanta, 2 hours north of Tallahassee, and I got to cover University of Georgia football, a bunch of high school football, and junior college sports. And then after being there, I went to Columbus, Ohio, for a statewide broadcast TV station where I covered everything from the Cincinnati Bengals to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Um, and then once my sports department in Ohio, after about 3.5 years, decided to close shop and go to more of a news operation.
Mhm.
Um, I posed Danny with the opportunity to do a podcast because I knew he always wanted to get into broadcasting. So it became a point where I could help him, he could help me, and I had time on my schedule. And two titles later, 2.5 years later, then 3 teams later,
Mhm.
here we are.
When I was in North Carolina, Kenny Smith had just graduated, and I got to know him pretty well through a mutual friend, and it was his sole, it was his dream to obviously play in the NBA, but also have a career in sports broadcasting. And it sounds like Danny's kind of taken that same path, and it's pretty cool to see. The podcast is really good. You guys have had some amazing guests.
Yeah, no, yeah, we've been very fortunate to get some good guests, whether it's James Worthy, Isaiah Thomas,
Jeannie Buss,
Jeannie Buss, Rob
that was a good one.
Pelinka,
Lenka,
even dated back to season one. Pretty much had the entire Raptors roster outside of Kawhi because it's Kawhi on
yeah.
the show. Um, yeah, we've been able to go kind of outside the box with some of our guests as well. So it's been great. I can't complain. And more than anything, just getting to talk to Danny myself and having putting that out to the public. I think Danny's basically the best guest of all time for me, just because he's very transparent about
He's very
what's
open on
going
the
on.
podcast. I mean, I listened to your last one, and it was the first one of your new season. It was right after Danny got traded to Philly. Well, right around the time it was announced
Yes.
officially. We knew about it for a couple of weeks. And
Yeah.
he came on strong, man. He promised he was going to get Ben Simmons to shoot 1 3 a game and push him to get shooting. Now, let me tell you something. Brett Brown couldn't do it. Jimmy Butler couldn't do it. Nobody's been able to get this guy to shoot. What makes you think Danny Green's going to be able to fulfill his promise?
Yeah, that we're gonna have to see how that one plays out.
You're not going to die on the stake on that one, huh?
Yeah, no, we're gonna have to see how that one plays out for sure. I do know that he's been encouraged by the newer coaching staff now to
Yeah.
be a bit more aggressive in shooting in the pick and roll situations, or from the mid range at least, or near the hoop. So at least be more aggressive when it comes to scoring in general. I guess we'll have to see how it plays out. But for my estimation, I think with the way the team is now, and kind of where they are this year, being kind of a referendum on the Ben Simmons Joel Embiid pairing, why not? Why not shoot a little bit? And here's another factor too. There are no fans in this. There are no fans in the arena anymore to boo if he misses a three horribly, to cheer. Obviously, maybe to cheer helps, but particularly the mental aspect of that part
Yeah.
might be aided by the fact that there are no fans in the arena. And for the most part, when Ben Simmons sees somebody in front of him on the court, he's better than them in general.
Yeah.
So he could take the heat from a player that's not close to as good as him if he misses a jumper poorly, because, well, that player might not even say anything to him because it's still Ben Simmons, and they're going to operate with a level of fear that if I start popping at the mouth, he's going to come down the next possession and dunk on me.
Here's one of the
So
things you're going to learn about Philadelphia fans is that, there's the reputation that they're
mhm.
so hard on their stars and everything else. They are the most supportive fans in the world when it comes to really wanting to help a player get through something. One of the things that, Markelle Fultz, when he was with the team,
Oh yes,
he couldn't shoot at all, right? And you remember the whole herky jerky free
yeah,
throw and all that. But man, whenever he took a shot, they cheered for him, they supported him. If he missed it, they clapped anyway. And they're like that with Simmons when he shoots a three. The couple times he's done it, um, it's basically a standing ovation. It's lead.
yeah,
It's lead on the Philadelphia local broadcasts. I mean, it's a big deal when he shoots it and even makes a three.
yeah.
So it's if it's mental, which it is, he will get supported for it by the fan base, whether they're in the crowd or not. He's just got to do it.
Yeah, I I feel a certain type of way about some of that. I almost felt bad for him last year when he did hit that three, and we saw the joyous celebration for an NBA player hitting a three.
Yeah, it was almost like a 6-year-old kicking a soccer goal, right?
He's
Yeah,
like, if I'm Ben, I'm like, hey, I know I haven't done this before, but please let's not act like I can't do this. But no, I hope it doesn't become. He's too good of a player for that to be uh, a sole focus, because there's so much more that he can do. Maybe
yeah,
when you actually get to clutch time, maybe that becomes more of a discussion point. But there's so many other ways, obviously, that he can impact the game, um, to kind of circle the conversation around his jump shot when he does so much more.
yeah.
I actually had a very long conversation about him last night. It was pretty. I had a lot of fun doing it. So no, I hope the
Was that
conversation
on your
doesn't solely
podcast,
revolve around
or
his jump shot.
who did you have the conversation with about him?
Oh, so this was a conversation amongst the homies. So you ready for this?
Oh, okay.
I could just take it there if you want.
Yeah, just no, take me there. Yeah.
So the discussion was, should the 76ers trade for James Harden? And the specific
That's
question
one of my
was,
questions.
yeah, I knew it was coming, so we can just
Yeah.
get there. Should they trade for should they if they do the trade for James Harden, should it include Ben Simmons? And my immediate answer was no. And because at the end of the day,
Well, then there's no
it,
trade because that's all they want. They're not
yeah,
gonna do it for
exactly.
Danny Green, Matisse Thybulle, and Furkan Korkmaz, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
it's gotta be Simmons or Embiid.
Yeah, I would think. Yeah, obviously Tobias, because of the salary, could make it happen. I
Yeah,
think you'd obviously have to wait another 30-day. I think they have to wait another 30-day period, even if they did want it, if they want to trade Danny, because
yeah.
you have
I
that.
just I just meant
No,
that
oh yeah,
as
no, for sure,
part
for
of it.
sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
uh,
you're not if you're Houston, you're not doing that unless you're getting a star back or a boatload of draft picks that the Sixers don't have.
yeah. So I think it's going to have to come down to maybe a third team getting involved. But if you think about it, in my opinion, there are three players in this league that could win you uh, a series, a playoff series, if not an NBA Finals. LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Kawhi Leonard. Two-way guys, elite offensive players, elite defensive players who are built in a certain way that's almost unstoppable. They give their teams at least a 50-50 chance to win any playoff series just because of how much they can dominate the game. And if you don't have a suitable defender for them on the opposite side, it could be completely over. And I
Yeah.
think Ben Simmons is one of those 3 to 5 guys in the league that you could say, hey, guard Kawhi Leonard, guard Giannis Antetokounmpo, guard LeBron James, and wow, nobody's ever going to shut these guys down.
Right.
He has a chance of making them have their worst level performances on the scale of really good performances, regardless of
Yeah,
whatever.
he led the league last year in guarding star players and holding them to the lowest percentage, which is why he was first team all defense.
Yeah, he is a necessity.
Yeah.
If you're gonna try and beat those guys, and those guys
So
are
would you trade him for James Harden?
Ben Simmons?
Yeah.
No, so I would for that fact alone. On top of everything else that he does, if you trade him from James Harden, where are you gonna find that player that can guard LeBron, KD, Giannis, Kawhi?
There is none.
Then you don't win this. Then you don't win that series anyway.
Yeah.
And so then what did you if you're trading for James Harden, you are trading to win an NBA championship. And if you don't have a person to guard those 4 aforementioned players, then you're not winning an NBA championship anyway.
Well, Joel
In my
Embiid,
opinion.
I'm making the case here on to take the counter argument. Joel Embiid, when he's healthy, is the dominant presence in the post in terms of defense. Danny Green is a good defender. Matisse Thybulle can be an elite defender. I'm not saying they can guard Kawhi and LeBron, but what I'm saying is if they had Harden, it's not like there'd be no defense like Houston last year.
I would agree. I just feel as if then the powers that are within the likes of a Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, Giannis Antetokounmpo are then just too overwhelming. Yeah. Matisse is a very good defender, especially coming off a rookie season. Danny is a quality team defender, a disciplined defender. Joel Embiid is probably one of the, if not the best big man defender in the league, one of the best. But it doesn't, in my estimation, we've seen the last teams that won titles. It was led by LeBron James, led by Kawhi Leonard, led by Kevin Durant.
I want to. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So if you don't have a suitable defensive matchup for those guys, I just think your chances of winning a title are unlikely anyway.
You know, we hear a lot about leadership, and I know that, Danny talked about his role in the locker room might even be more important than on the court with the Sixers. I want to explore that in a minute, but I want to take a quick break. As one of the things that we like to do on the Killing Me Smalls podcast is promote charity. And there's no better charity than the one that my daughter is running. My daughter has a brain tumor. She dealt with 18 months of chemotherapy. It's inoperable. All the pain and suffering that goes through it. She's fought through it. She's doing great. She gets a scan every 4 months, and thank God she's doing fantastic. But one of the things that she noticed when she was looking at the kids going through chemotherapy is that there were plenty of toys and things surrounding the little kids, but the teenagers were withdrawn. You'd see a 16-year-old with a hoodie on and just pull it over their heads and just withdraw. So what she has done is started the Small Miracles charity, where she's collected money and has really bought gifts to brighten the day for those who are going through this horrible chemotherapy disease, cancer disease, and going through chemotherapy. She raised $15,000 last year and was able to deliver it to Children's Hospital of Philadelphia in the form of gift cards and toys and slippers and socks and things to make them comfortable during the process. And it's now a 501c3. It's a great charity. It's done a lot to help a lot of kids. and she continues to drive it. She's relentless. She's 17 years old, and she impresses the hell out of me every day. If you're interested in finding out about small miracles, please go onto the website, smallmiracle.org. Or if you're interested in contributing and you want to Venmo, it's small_miracles. So definitely a charity worth checking out. So Harrison, back to you. I want to talk a little bit about Danny and how he fits with the Sixers because, you know, one of the things that you talked about, the indictment on Simmons and Embiid as a pairing or a referendum will come this year, really. If you think about it, 3 years ago, there was a team with Simmons and Embiid, and it had JJ Redick, and it had Dario Saric, and it had Ersan Ilyasova, and Marco Bellinelli, and TJ McConnell. Then that team got beat by the Boston Celtics. Then the next year, they bring in Jimmy Butler, Tobias, JJ was still there. Then you know about the doink, the 4 bounces from Kawhi that really ended that team. Jimmy Butler's gone. JJ Redick is gone. Bring in Al Horford, keep Tobias. And now that team did not work out. It didn't make sense. It was unbalanced. And now this year's team, Al Horford's gone. Josh Richardson's gone. You bring in Danny Green. You bring in Seth Curry. You've got shooting. You've got balance. It's an exciting prospect of what the team could be on the court. We talked about Danny Green's role off the court. Is that overstated? Is that overrated? And how does it matter in terms of the locker room presence? And where have you seen it matter in Danny's career?
Where I've seen it matter was in Toronto. The impact of a guy coming into the locker room and passing on the little things that matter on the way to a championship.
Do you have an example of one of those things? Like, did Danny ever tell you a story, maybe off the record or off camera
Yeah, there's
rather,
probably some stuff off the record
that you could share? That makes sense
yeah,
to share.
but when it comes to, okay, we're on the road here. As much as this guy might want to go out, you got to be back in your room by a certain time if you want to be successful the next day. Or I consistently come to practice 30 minutes early, and to me, that's not considered early. That's considered on time. That's considered. I know it might not make sense to call out this screen in game 30 of a 72 or 82 game season against the Sacramento Kings. But trust me, if you don't get used to doing this now, it's going to happen to us in game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals. And sometimes I think he might say a lot. And it's interesting. It's almost as if when you're speaking to somebody and they give you cliche statements, it really does. Cliche statements only hit if you respect the person it's coming from, and that where it might play a factor with him because of his veteran status and what he's done and where he's been around. And I
Yeah.
think specifically for guys um, like Ben Simmons, or no, particularly like a guy like Joel Embiid, for example. Danny's played with Tim Duncan and Anthony Davis, and
And
Marc
Marc
Gasol
Gasol, who
and
Embiid
Marc
respects.
Gasol.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Danny's also played with LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard for Ben Simmons. So obviously Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are multitude of levels above Danny in terms of caliber of player. But I think Danny having the approach of, I know where you stand, but I played with guys who are on your level, and trust me, this is what they did, that they're not telling the general public or just anybody else. So let me tell you this, sealed information while we're teammates, because you're not going to get this if we're not playing on the same team.
Does Danny have the same longevity of a career and the same impact on younger players and the same wisdom that he shares if he had not gone to the Spurs first?
I don't know. I think the Spurs were a key to a lot of things that happened positively in his career. I think one was Manu Ginobili embracing him despite the fact that Manu Ginobili is a Hall of Fame player and Manu Ginobili was at peace with
Yeah.
Danny starting over him. And I think that grace from Manu really set the tone for the entirety of Danny's career going forward, because I think that opportunity that he got in San Antonio after being released by the Cavaliers, and then having to fight two different times to get on that roster. I think having that opportunity given to him and him taking that opportunity and rolling with it, and the grace that was displayed by Manu, and him not still embracing him,
Yeah.
and then Pop for being hard on him, but yet still encouraging him. I think it set the table for everything that's happened since then. I don't think there is a Danny Green without the Spurs. And ironically, when I would cover Danny's games in high school, I would often tell him, I think you would fit in perfectly with the Spurs. And after a while, that actually what happened. That's actually what's led to where he is now. So,
So tell me about
congratulations.
now.
Yep.
What Put on your prognostication skills. Tell me what kind of a team the Sixers will have this year. Tell me where Danny fits. Tell me, does it all come together? Do they trade for James Harden? Give me your predictions for 2021.
I don't think they trade for James Harden. Honestly, I feel as if a lot of the quote unquote noise is because James wants to end up with KD and Kyrie in Brooklyn. And I think all this noise makes Brooklyn come to the table a bit faster.
I think you're
I,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, um, that would be, regardless of the fit, you have those three guys on the team if they're healthy. That's scary.
Yeah, and I think
And
I think that Houston's trying to drive the price up a little bit too. So I think there's a lot of manipulating in the media going on.
oh yeah, for sure. And then in terms of the Sixers, I think they are. So I believe that the Bucks are the best team, um, and similar to how they've been the last 3 years, can finish the East with the top record. And then after that, I think there's just a logjam of 5 to 6 teams that are right after them. Whether it's Brooklyn, Boston, Toronto,
Miami.
Philadelphia,
Yeah.
Miami. So you got those five teams after Milwaukee. So you have about 6 teams, I believe, in the Eastern Conference. And honestly, and I felt this way for the past 2 years. How far the 76ers go pretty much is relying upon the matchup. I feel as if they had the opportunity to play the Bucks in the second round, they have a great chance of winning, because they have reasonable defenders for Giannis Antetokounmpo. But if they ended up against maybe the Boston Celtics, that might be a different case, just because of how they've struggled with them. Or I'm trying to think of another team that they might play well against. They might have a good chance against Brooklyn, because you could see Matisse as being somebody who can guard Kyrie or KD, and Ben Simmons as somebody who can guard KD. I think the East really comes down to matchups, to be honest with you. How you favor against. Now they might have a harder time with a team like Miami because of Bam Adebayo and his ability to guard Joel and be a menace, and then obviously Jimmy Butler is a menace as well. So I think it really just comes down to matchups, to be honest with you. What I'm curious about, and this is why teams could be matchup proof, and we've seen it the past 2 years with the past two champions. If you have the ability to play 5 players on the court at all times, that you could switch down the line defensively, like you feel good. If you get into an awkward situation, they can't target anybody. And
Mhm.
at the same time, on the offensive side of the ball, if you would
Great point.
spread the fall, if all 5 guys can hit threes, or at least attract attention in their respective spaces on the court, then you're really cooking with hot grease. Who
Yeah,
said that?
I think
Who
you
said
make a
that?
great point.
Yeah.
Last
So
question: will you
yeah,
give the Killing Me Smalls podcast a shout out on the next Green Room?
say less. It's done.
Done. All right.
Yeah.
Harrison, I hope you're an awesome guest and you do a great job on that podcast, and it's really great getting to know you. And I know that you're going to be around, and can you commit to coming back on the show a couple of times this year?
Oh yeah, for sure. We could definitely do it. Definitely do it.
Awesome.
And
Why don't you
preferably
tell
we'll
everybody?
do it. Preferably we'll do it in a more favorable time, to Pacific time. people because I'm still in LA and I'm
No,
popping
we're
up
not
everywhere.
live. It's okay. We're recording this and sending it out. It's okay. They can record it, and actually they can see it on
Yeah.
YouTube by subscribing to the Painted Lines, because all of our podcasts are there and they do a great job. We've got all kinds of basketball and football and baseball podcasts and some hockey and some culture. It's a great podcast network. And of course, you can subscribe to Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast to the Killing Me Smalls podcast and give it a rating and a review. I'd really appreciate it. Harrison, where can everybody follow you?
Harrison Sanford on Twitter and High Def HIDEF Sanford on Instagram.
Harrison, thank you for joining the Killing Me